May I take your order?
The chef's special, please. He had no idea she spoke fluent Korean. Thank you, that looks delicious.
You are very welcome.
He thought she couldn't understand a single word. But it's already too late. Zara James had been the best server at Sayul Sky for 2 years, and nobody in that restaurant, not the guests, not the staff, not the man who had just watched her walk away with his face, the color of old paper, knew the most important thing about her. She spoke Korean, not conversationally, not the basic phrases of someone who had downloaded an app and committed to 30 days of practice. Fluently, precisely, with the specific fluency of a woman who had spent a year in Seoul at 21 and had fallen in love with the language the way certain people fall in love with things completely, permanently, without a clear explanation for why this thing and not something else. She had never mentioned it at Soyul Sky. In 2 years, not once. Not because she was hiding it, because nobody had ever asked. Soyul Sky occupied the 40th floor of a glass tower in Midtown Manhattan and had been awarded 2 Michelin stars 4 years ago, and had maintained them every year since through the specific combination of Chef Im's extraordinary kitchen and Mr. Song's extraordinary floor management, and the collective excellence of a staff that understood, without being told, that in a room like this one, everything was either an asset or a liability, and nothing was neither. 7-month waitlist, 42 covers per service, an 11-course tasting menu that people flew to New York specifically to experience. Zara had chosen this restaurant from 3 offers 2 years ago because it was the hardest one to get into, and she had wanted the hardest one. She had studied hospitality at a university that cost more than most people's homes, financed entirely through scholarships, and the understanding that excellence was the only door that stayed open, regardless of who was trying to close it. She arrived tonight at 5:15. Mr. Song briefed the floor staff at 6. Standard notes, dietary requirements. A VIP in the corner booth, no name given, which meant Chairman Lee, though only Chef M and Mr. Song knew that, and Zara had figured it out on her second week by watching the way Mr. Song's posture changed whenever the reservation was mentioned. And table 7, Derek Ashton, party of 2. Mr. Song delivered the name with the specific neutrality of someone who had formed an opinion and was professionally required not to share it. Zara was assigned table 7. She did not know yet what the evening was going to cost her. She did not know yet what it was going to give her back. She picked up her order pad and she went to work. Derek Ashton arrived at 7:15. He came through the door the way certain men come through doors, as though the door had been waiting for him, as though the room had been assembled in anticipation of his arrival. He was 44 and had the face of someone who had been handsome at 30 and had decided at some point in the decade that followed that handsome was less useful than intimidating, and had worked on the transition methodically. He had changed his middle name from Darnell to Douglas at 22. He had decided that Darnell did not belong in the rooms he intended to occupy. He had been right about the rooms, and had spent 20 years pretending he had not been wrong about the name. Ashley was beside him, 31. The specific kind of beautiful that comes from someone who was born with good bones and has spent 4 years learning not to take up more space than the man beside her requires her to take up. She looked at the room with genuine interest, the kind of person who arrives somewhere and actually sees it. Zara approached. She introduced herself. She described the evening's menu with the warmth of someone who meant it. She loved the food at Soyul Sky, had eaten every dish at the staff table, and remembered each one. Ashley asked 2 questions. Good questions. The questions of someone who is actually curious rather than performing curiosity. Derek looked at the menu. He did not look at Zara. When she finished, he said, without looking up, "Fine, start with the wine." She went to get the wine list. Behind her, in Korean, Derek said, "These places always hire for diversity now. You can tell she has no idea what she's doing." Ashley frowned. "What did you say?" "Nothing. Just looking at the menu." Zara, 6 feet away at the wine station, had heard every word. She picked up the wine list. She breathed once. She went back to the table and made a recommendation with the same warmth and the same precision she brought to everything, and she watched Derek order something different and more expensive for the specific purpose of establishing that he was the one making decisions here. She wrote the order. She walked away. She began counting. If this opening has already pulled you in, if you felt that moment at the wine station, you are exactly where this story needs you. Subscribe to this channel right now. Hit the button, because what Derek Ashton does next is going to make your blood run cold. And what happens to him after that is going to make you stand up. Subscribe. Keep watching. We are nowhere near done. The tasting menu moved through its first 4 courses with the particular grace of 11 courses that have been designed to build on each other, each one arriving at exactly the right moment, each one doing something the previous one had prepared the palate for. Ashley went quiet with each course, the real quiet. The quiet of someone who has been given something extraordinary and is present enough to receive it. Derek ate. He did not go quiet. Going quiet would have meant surrendering something to the food, and Derek Ashton did not surrender things to food or to rooms or to anyone who could not directly affect his net worth. Between courses, he spoke Korean, not loudly, never loudly, in the specific undertone of a man who has found what he believes is a private frequency in a public room and is enjoying the freedom of it. Second course, he told Ashley, in Korean, that the portion sizes were what happened when a chef prioritized presentation over substance. He said this while eating every bite and leaving the plate clean. Third course, he looked at Zara approaching with the next dish and said to Ashley, still in Korean, still in the undertone, watch how she carries that, no training. They just put anyone on the floor these days. Zara set the third course on the table with the precision of someone who has carried exactly this kind of plate, exactly this many times across exactly this kind of room, and has never once dropped anything. She described the dish. She answered Ashley's question about the preparation. Ashley's question was good, specific, the question of someone paying attention. Zara walked away. Insult 3. She was counting. The fourth course was the flambe. This was the moment of the service that Zara had been preparing for since she arrived at 5:15, not because of anything Derek had said, but because the flambe was the most technically demanding moment of any service. And she approached it the way she approached everything that was technically demanding, which was with complete focus and zero tolerance for error. She brought the cart to table 7. She assembled the components with the efficient economy of someone who has done this enough times that the movements have become precise without becoming mechanical. She checked the temperature. She checked the angle. She checked the timing. Ashley watched with genuine interest. Is this the brandy reduction? Cognac, Zara said. Age 12 years. The temperature has to be exact, too low and it won't catch. Too high and you lose the caramel underneath. She introduced the flame. It rose blue and gold above the pan, the specific, beautiful, controlled violence of a fire that is being managed rather than contained. Several tables nearby turned to watch. The room noticed, the way rooms notice things that are briefly extraordinary in the middle of an ordinary evening. Derek said in Korean without looking at her, anyone can light something on fire. The flame completed its arc. Zara brought it down at exactly the right moment, not a second early, not a second late. The cognac finished. The caramel underneath was perfect. She plated the dish. She set it in front of Derek. The caramel will continue to develop for about 30 seconds, she said. It's worth the wait. She pushed the cart away. Insult 4. She was not angry. This was important, she had checked internally, and what she found was not anger, but something colder and more useful. The specific clarity of a woman who has decided that what is being done to her tonight is going to be accounted for, and that the accounting is going to be precise. In the corner booth, Chairman Lee Sung-ho had been watching table 7 since Derek arrived. He was 61 years old and had built one of the largest construction and development conglomerates in South Korea through 40 years of the specific patience that comes from understanding that the most important information about a person is never in what they present, but in what they reveal when they believe nobody is watching. He had been coming to Soyu Sky 4 times a year for 3 years. He always sat in the corner booth. He always ordered the tasting menu. He always arrived early and spent the first 40 minutes simply observing the room, not the decor, not the view, but the people. How they treated each other. How they treated the staff. What they said when they thought the distance made them private. He had been watching Derek Ashton for 3 months. Not just tonight, for 3 months. Since Derek's firm had initiated the acquisition approach, Chairman Lee had been building a picture of the man behind the financial proposal. The financial proposal was strong. The man, Chairman Lee had suspected, was not. Tonight was the confirmation. He had also been watching Zara James for 2 years. He had figured out she spoke Korean on his second visit, something in the way her expression adjusted when the kitchen staff spoke near her, a microscopic tell that most people would never have caught, and that Chairman Lee caught immediately because catching microscopic tells was how he had survived 40 years in rooms that wanted to consume him. He had never mentioned it to anyone. Tonight he was very glad he hadn't. Between the fifth and sixth courses, Derek's phone rang. He answered it at the table, a thing that Mr. Song noted from the service station with the expression of a man adding something to a mental file that was already fairly full. The call was in English, brief, numbers, a timeline, a pressure point that had something to do with a board vote scheduled for the following Thursday. When Derek ended the call, he looked across the room at the corner booth. Chairman Lee was on his sixth course. He was not looking at Derek. Derek leaned toward Ashley, in Korean. By next month, everything that man built is going to have my name on it. Ashley, in English. What? Derek in English. I said this wine is exceptional. Zara was 3 feet away, refreshing a water glass. She had heard every word of the Korean. She set down the water pitcher. She looked at Mr. Song across the room. I need 60 seconds, she said quietly. Mr. Song looked at her. In 2 years, she had never asked for 60 seconds. He nodded. She went to the back corridor. She took out her phone. She opened her notes application. She wrote down what Derek had said, the exact words, the timestamp, the specific Korean phrase he had used for everything that man built, because Zara James kept records the way some people keep faith, completely and without exception. She put her phone away. She went back to the floor. She passed the corner booth. She checked the water glass in ordinary service action, the kind that happens 40 times a service and that nobody notices. As she leaned to pour, she said in Korean, barely above the ambient noise of the room, the gentleman at table 7 said something tonight I think you should know about. Chairman Lee did not look up from his plate. Tell me, he said. She told him in 3 sentences. What Derek had said about the acquisition. The exact words, the timestamp. Chairman Lee set down his fork. How long has he been speaking Korean tonight? He said. Since the second course, Zara said. 4 times so far. What has he said? She told him. All 4. In order. Without addition or subtraction, just the words as they were said in the moment they were said in. Chairman Lee was quiet for 3 seconds. Then, Miss James, are you aware of the audio system in this dining room? Do not go anywhere. What Chairman Lee says next changes everything, and we mean everything. Like this video right now if you can feel where this is going. Hit the like button, drop a comment and tell us, did you see this coming? We want to know. Like it, comment, stay right here. Zara looked at him. The ambient recording system, she said carefully. I know it exists. I don't know the details of how it operates. It has been active since Mr. Ashton's reservation was confirmed, Chairman Lee said. 3 weeks ago, I asked Chef M to activate it when I learned who had booked table 7. Zara was quiet for a moment. You knew he was coming. I knew someone was coming, Chairman Lee said. I needed to know what kind of someone. He picked up his fork. Please continue your service, Miss James. The next 2 courses are going to be very important. She went back to the floor. Behind her, in the corner booth, Chairman Lee took out his phone. He made 1 call. It lasted 40 seconds. When he ended it, he set the phone face down on the white tablecloth and returned to his meal with the complete composure of a man who has just set something in motion and has no need to watch it move because he knows exactly where it is going. Zara served the 7th course, then the 8th. Between them, Derek made 3 more comments in Korean. She counted each one. 7 total now. 7 specific, documented, time-stamped insults delivered in a language he had no idea she spoke, in a room he had no idea was listening, to a woman he had decided, before she opened her mouth, did not merit his attention. The 9th course arrived. This was the point in Soyul Sky's tasting menu, where the evening began its turn toward conclusion, the savory courses giving way to the transition dish, the pacing shifting from building to resolving. Regular guests recognized this moment. First-timers felt it without being able to name it. The room changed quality slightly, became warmer, more relaxed at the edges. Derek was on his 3rd glass of wine. He was more expansive now, the specific looseness that arrives in certain men when they have been performing confidence for 3 hours, and the performance is beginning to feel less like performance and more like truth. He looked across the room at the corner booth. Chairman Lee was finishing his 9th course. Derek looked at Ashley, in Korean. Watch. I'm going to go introduce myself. By the end of this month, he will be reporting to me. Ashley frowned. What are you doing? Derek was already standing. 5 minutes, he said. Stay here. He buttoned his jacket. He walked across the dining room with the walk of a man who has decided that this is the moment, the casual, unplanned, perfectly engineered moment of proximity that will make Thursday's board meeting feel like a formality rather than a decision. Zara saw him moving. She looked at Mr. Song. Mr. Song gave a single nod. They had spoken. Chairman Lee had spoken to Mr. Song during the seventh course. Everyone on the floor knew their position for what was coming. She followed Derek at a professional distance, not pursuing, simply present, because her job was to be present at table 7 and Derek Ashton was currently moving away from it, which made him, technically, still her responsibility. Derek reached the corner booth. He extended his hand. He smiled the smile he had spent 20 years building, the one that opened boardrooms and softened resistance and communicated, without words, that the person smiling it was exactly the kind of person you wanted on your side. Chairman Lee, he said. Derek Ashton, I believe we have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday. I didn't want to let the evening pass without saying hello. Chairman Lee looked at the extended hand. He did not take it. He looked at it for 2 full seconds, long enough for Derek to feel the seconds passing, long enough for the smile to require maintenance, and then he looked up at Derek's face. Mr. Ashton, he said, please sit down. Derek sat. His smile recalibrated, found a new configuration that communicated openness rather than confidence, because confidence was beginning to feel like the wrong register. I appreciate you coming over, Derek said. I've been looking forward to Thursday. The proposal my team has put together. You said, Chairman Lee said, in Korean, that by next month everything I built would have your name on it. Derek went completely still. The smile stopped. Not recalibrated, stopped. Like a machine that has been switched off rather than adjusted. I'm sorry, he said. 10:47, Chairman Lee said. Still in Korean, completely level. Between your 5th and 6th courses. In Korean. To your fiancé, who I believe does not speak Korean. He looked at Derek with the specific directness of a man who has been patient for 3 months and has finished being patient. Your server does. Derek looked up. Zara was standing 3 feet from the table, professionally, correctly, in exactly the position a server would stand when attending to a guest near the booth. She had not moved toward him. She had not changed her expression. She was simply there, the way she had been there all evening, present, precise, and entirely seen. She doesn't, Derek started. He stopped. Because he was a man who had spent 20 years reading rooms, and the room was telling him something his mouth had already begun to say before his brain had finished processing whether it was true. Zara looked at him. Your tasting menu will begin in 3 minutes, Mr. Ashton, she said. In Korean, quiet, unhurried. The exact words from the beginning of the evening, in the exact tone, with the exact composure. I hope you enjoyed every course. The color left Derek Ashton's face completely. Not gradually. Not in the slow drain of someone absorbing bad news. All at once. Like something had been removed rather than depleted. He looked at the table. He looked at Chairman Lee. He looked at Zara. He looked at his hands. Chairman Lee picked up his tea. He held it with both hands the way he always held it, the specific, unhurried quality of a man for whom this moment is not a surprise, and therefore does not require the energy of surprise. There is also the matter, he said, of what you said about Miss James throughout the course of this evening. He looked at Zara. 7 comments. Beginning with the second course. Zara said, the second course. 9:43. He said these places hire for diversity now and that I had no idea what I was doing. She did not look at Derek when she said it. She looked at Chairman Lee. Because this was not a performance for Derek. This was a record being entered. There was a difference. The third course, she continued. 9:58. He said to watch how I was carrying the plate, that there was no training, that they put anyone on the floor. Derek said, I was. The fourth course, Zara said. 10:14. During the flambe, he said anyone could light something on fire. The dining room around them had developed the specific quality of a room that is pretending not to listen while listening completely. The tables nearest the corner booth had gone quieter than the ambient music. The tables further away were beginning to notice the quality of the quiet and orient toward it. Miss James, Chairman Lee set down his tea. Would you like to continue? Three more, she said. 10:29, 10:41, and 10:47. That won't be necessary, Chairman Lee said. He looked at Derek. The dining room has an ambient audio recording system. It has been active since your reservation was confirmed. Everything said in this room tonight has been documented. Derek looked around. He looked at Mr. Song near the service station. Mr. Song, whose expression communicated nothing except the professional neutrality of a man doing his job, which was its own communication. He looked at the room, he looked at the ceiling, he looked at Ashley, who had come to the corner booth. She had been drawn by something, the quality of the silence, the specific gravity of a moment that announces itself without announcement. She was standing at the edge of the booth with her evening bag in both hands and the expression of a woman who has arrived somewhere mid-conversation and is catching up very fast. Derek, she said. What is happening? Chairman Lee looked at her. Please sit down, miss. Ashley, she said. Miss Ashley, your fiancé has spent this evening making comments about our server in Korean. 7 comments. About her competence, her presence in this restaurant, and her right to be here. He paused. He made them believing she could not understand. She understood all of them. Ashley looked at Derek. Derek said nothing. The 20 years of performance, all of it, the name change, the boardroom smile, the polished walk through every door he had ever decided he deserved to walk through had stopped. What was left underneath it was a man who had been seen completely and had no prepared response for being seen. The acquisition, Chairman Lee said, will not be proceeding. I will be contacting your firm tomorrow morning. He looked at Derek without hostility, simply directly. The way you look at a conclusion you reached a long time ago and are now simply stating, a man who speaks about people this way, when he believes no one is listening, is not a man I will do business with. He picked up his tea. Please enjoy the remainder of your evening, he said. Derek stood. He did it slowly, the slow stand of a man whose body is doing what it is supposed to do, while his mind is still 3 sentences behind. He straightened his jacket. The gesture was automatic, the muscle memory of a man who had straightened his jacket in difficult moments for 20 years, because straightening his jacket was the thing his hands knew how to do when everything else had stopped working. He looked at Zara one more time. She looked back at him, not with triumph, not with the performed satisfaction of someone who has won something they have been waiting to win. With the same composure she had carried all evening, the composure that had been there before his first insult and was still there after his last, unchanged, because it had never been about him. It had been about her. It had always been about her. He looked away first. He walked to the exit. He did not look at Ashley. He did not slow down at the host stand. He walked through the door of Soyul Sky the way he had walked in, with the posture of a man who occupies rooms by right, except that the posture was now doing the work that the belief used to do, and posture without belief is just a way of holding your body. The door closed behind him. The room breathed. Ashley did not follow. Not immediately. She stood at the edge of the corner booth for a moment, not frozen, not collapsed, but doing the specific interior work of a woman who has been given information that restructures 4 years of carefully maintained calculation and is now running those 4 years through the new numbers. She looked at Zara. I'm sorry, she said, for what he said, for all of it. I should have. You didn't know, Zara said. I should have known, Ashley said. There were I should have known. She picked up her evening bag. She walked to the exit with the specific, deliberate pace of a woman who is choosing every step rather than being carried by momentum. At the host stand, she stopped. She took off her engagement ring. She set it on the host stand. Carefully, like someone setting down something they have been carrying for a long time and have finally decided is not theirs to carry. She walked out. Mr. Song looked at the ring on his host stand. He looked at Zara. He picked it up and placed it in the small drawer beneath the reservation book. Because this was a 2-star Michelin restaurant, and even the extraordinary moments were handled with care, because care was what this room did with everything it was given. The service continued. This is the part where we need you to do something. Right now, before you hear what happens next, share this video. Send it to someone who has ever been the most competent person in a room that refused to see them. The like button, the share, the subscribe, do all 3 right now. Because this story is almost over and the ending is the part that stays with you. Do it, then come back. 3 days after the evening at Soyul Sky, Derek Ashton's firm placed him on administrative leave. The call from Chairman Lee's office had come the following morning, as promised. It had been brief. Chairman Lee's legal team had followed up that afternoon with documentation, the audio recording, the time-stamped transcript, the 7 comments in order with their translations. The firm's compliance department had been given 24 hours to respond. They responded in 12. Derek's administrative leave was announced internally with the specific language that organizations use when they need to act quickly and publicly while maintaining the appearance of due process. The review took 3 weeks. At the end of 3 weeks, a door stopped opening. Not with a crash, not with a public statement, not with the drama that Derek had brought to every room he had ever entered. Just quietly. The way the most permanent closings tend to happen. The acquisition did not proceed. The board vote scheduled for Thursday was postponed and then, 2 weeks later, canceled. The financial press noted the collapse of the deal with the brief, unsurprised tone they use for deals that collapsed without public explanation, which in their experience was most of them. Nobody reported the reason. Nobody needed to. In the rooms where the reason mattered, everyone who needed to know already knew. Because that was how those rooms worked. Information traveled through them, not through announcements, but through the specific, efficient network of people who understood that character and consequence were connected, and that what a man said in a restaurant when he believed nobody was listening was exactly as true as what he said in a boardroom. When everyone was. Zara James was called into Chef M's office on a Wednesday morning, 2 weeks after the gala service. Chef M was not a man who called people into his office to discuss things that could be handled on the floor. Zara had been called into his office twice in 2 years. Once when he wanted to tell her she was the best server he had ever managed, and once when he wanted to ask if she was happy, because he had the specific instinct of a man who understood that the best people always had options and that options required tending. She sat across from him. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. She read it. Guest Experience Director. A title that had not existed at Soyul Sky before this piece of paper. A role that had been created, the brief description made clear, around the understanding that a restaurant's excellence was only as real as the dignity with which it treated every person in the room on both sides of the service. Chairman Lee requested it, Chef M said. I agreed with the request. Zara looked at the paper. She looked at Chef M. What does it mean in practice? She said. The role. It means, Chef M said, that you are no longer only responsible for table 7. You are responsible for what this room is, what it communicates to the people who work in it and the people who come to it. He paused. It means that what you did 2 weeks ago, the counting, the record, the conversation with Chairman Lee, is now your job. Not an exceptional act. A job. She looked at the paper for a long moment. I want to write something, she said. Not a policy, not a manual, something personal, about what it costs to carry composure in a room that has decided not to see you, about what that costs and what it gives back, and what it looks like when the room is finally forced to look. Chef M nodded. Write it, he said. When you're done, we'll talk about what to do with it. She took the paper. She stood. She looked at Chef M, this man who had run this kitchen for 11 years and had sent 4 words in a text message and had meant all 4 of them completely. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me, he said. I'm just catching up to what you already were. She walked out of his office and back onto the floor of Soyul Sky, the floor she had walked for 2 years, the room she had given everything to, the 40 stories above Manhattan that had asked her to be invisible and had gotten, instead, the most precise and the most present and the most quietly consequential person in the room. The restaurant was not open yet. The tables were set but empty. The kitchen was beginning its afternoon prep. She could hear it through the closed door. The specific percussion of a professional kitchen an hour before service. The light through the floor-to-ceiling windows was the afternoon light, lower and warmer than the evening light, the kind that made the room look like it was made of something softer than glass and steel. She stood at the window. Manhattan spread below her in every direction. The specific, indifferent, magnificent scale of a city that contained within it every kind of room and every kind of story, and was entirely uninterested in any of them individually, which was one of the things she had always loved about it. She thought about the second course, 9:43, the first insult, the moment she had begun counting. She thought about the flambe, the blue and gold flame rising above the pan, the specific, controlled moment of bringing it down. She thought about the corner booth, 3 sentences, the audio system, The trap that had been assembling itself from the moment Derek Ashton walked through the door and had closed around him so quietly that he had not felt it until it was complete. She thought about Ashley's ring on the host stand. She thought about what Chef M had said. "I'm just catching up to what you already were." She pressed her hand flat against the glass. The city below, the sky above, the room behind her, empty and set and ready for whatever tonight would bring. She had been the most important person in this room for 2 years. The room had just figured it out. That was all right. She was patient. She had learned patience the same way she had learned Korean and learned the flambe and learned to count insults without flinching. Not because patience was easy, but because it was the only tool that never ran out. The only thing that kept working regardless of how long the room took to see what was standing right in front of it. She turned away from the window. She picked up her order pad. She went to work. Because the service was in 4 hours and the mise en place needed checking, and the ninth course had a new garnish that 3 of tonight's servers hadn't practiced yet. And Zara James was now the guest experience director of Seoul Sky, and that meant the floor was hers and the floor needed her, and she had always, in every room she had ever stood in, been exactly where she needed to be. The kitchen sounds came through the closed door. The afternoon light held the room. Table 7 was set. Clean linen. Crystal. A small white card with the reservation name for tonight. Whoever sat there tonight would be served with the same warmth and the same precision and the same complete professional care that every guest at every table received in this room. The difference was that now, if they forgot themselves, if they found a frequency they believed was private, and said the thing they believed no one could hear, the room would be listening. It had always been listening. Zara James had just made it official. If this story did something to you tonight, if Zara's composure, her counting, that moment at the corner booth, Ashley's ring, any of it reached somewhere real, then this channel deserves your support right now. Like this video, subscribe if you have not already, because every single week we make stories exactly like this one. Stories about the most important person in the room that the room forgot to see. Stories about dignity and patience and the specific devastating satisfaction of a trap closing on someone who never knew it was there. Subscribe. Drop a comment below. Tell us which moment hit you hardest. Was it the flambe? The timestamp? The ring on the host stand? Tell us. We read every comment, every single one. And share this with someone who needs to hear a story about a woman who never raised her voice and never needed to. We will see you in the next one.